Windows deployment has always fascinated me. The typical way to install Windows these days is from optical or USB media. However, there is another method that, that is seldom used outside the corporate environment, but it is used nonetheless, and that is using PXE. PXE is the pre-execution environment, which basically means that it boots to something without actually booting to the hard drive. The only way to get PXE to work is to use Windows Server, and the best way for me to show you that is using a virtual environment. This is what you'll see in Windows 2000 being installed. This is in fact a server, which I did mention server just now, but still. Why am I going back to 20 years ago? Why server 2000? Well, this series will be talking about migration to later versions of server, and I wanted to start from this version because it's the oldest version that is reminiscent of the newer versions of Windows. There is technically a NT server version, NT4 3.51, but they do not resemble a server or a domain that a lot of people are familiar with. So what I'm going to do is just install server, which I'm doing right now, and even before a domain gets created, there'll be a bunch of housekeeping things. There will be stuff like adding drives, because you can't just rely on the primary drive. You have to have all your domain stuff in a separate drive. I need to rename the PC. I need to update it as well. And when I say update it, I'm not connecting this to the internet. So it'll just be all offline updates, and that's going to be using a program called WSUS Offline Installer, which I'll probably be talking about a lot in this video, but still, it's something that I'm going to use. So the purpose of that is to get this server to be most up to date as much as it can, and because some of the software that I'll be using will not be compatible with earlier versions of Server 2000, and specifically the earlier versions of Server 2000 will not be able to deploy later versions of Windows. And that's what this series is about. It is just Windows, primarily Windows deployment through the ages. So it's going to cover pretty much 20 years of it. But there are only 3 points in time which we'll focus on, and Server 2000 being something called remote installation services, Server 2008 R2, which will be WSS, sorry, not WSS, WDS, which is Windows Deployment Services, which is just a newer version of IRS, not IRS, RIS, which is Remote Installation Services, and what else is there? Microsoft Deployment Toolbench, which I'll talk about later, but that'll be later on anyway. But anyway, for the moment, let's just install this, and I'll talk about various different steps I'm going to do and why I'm doing it in different ways. So let's just wait for this to install. So this setup is just standard across pretty much all versions of Windows. It asks you where you're located, it asks you what your keyboard layout. So since this is going to be the UK, that's just going to be changed into the UK. Do these change automatically? 2-digit years in 2029, okay. Input locales, make that one a default and get rid of that one. Okay. Cannot remove English United States because it's currently in use. It will be removed next time you reboot. Yeah, okay, that's fine. It's not a problem, and that should have changed. Yeah, that's right. So click next. The full name, and name. Okay. And it's going to be the CEO, and what's the organization going to be called? Organization is just going to be called domain. Yeah, so the organization is going to be the domain, and the domain is also going to be called domain. Okay, that's fine. Product key. So this version of server I did not get off the Microsoft's website, so this is not an evaluation copy, but you can get evaluation copies of the advanced server, which is pretty much the same thing, and it would apply to this. And what I'll do, I'll put the evaluation copy, I'll put the link to the Microsoft website of the evaluation copy, but if that's not available, I'll give you the product key. That is actually free to distribute because it's available on Microsoft's website, and you don't need to log in or anything, so it's not behind any payment walls or any registry walls. But this product key I cannot give you, so you'll have to find your own, I'm afraid. Okay, so once the product key has been inputted, you get licensing mode, which is a bit different than normal installs of Windows. And each connection must have its own client license. Each computer must have its own client access license, or it's either per server or per seat. To avoid violation of the license agreement, use licensing to record the number of. Thing is, let's do per seat, because that shouldn't matter, because each computer must have its own client access license. It's a cow. Each connection must have its own. So I think this is back in the day when you didn't have everyone using a PC, so they would only use certain amounts, so only certain PCs would access the server at any given time. But now it's generally per seat, so you'll support 35,000 PCs accessing one server. Anyway, regardless of that, it doesn't matter. The computer name is going to be later a domain controller, but I'm just going to prefix it with DC. Then make that Win 2000. The local admin password. That's not going to be a problem. So I can't remember if this meets a complexity requirement or if the complexity requirements are in this, but it's not a problem me telling you this password, but I'm just using password 00 with a capital P. The computer name contains a non-standard character. Standard characters include A to Z digits and hyphen. Using a non-standard name will prevent other users from finding your computer unless your network is using the Microsoft DNS server. Let me just change that then to that, which is not a problem. Let's have a look. What do I want? Don't want ISS. I do want remote installation services. That will be set up later. Terminal services provides multi-session environment for clients to access work, Windows-based programs. Configure this. No, not bothered about that. I don't need remote storage. Do I need networking services? Is this that old? Yes, so what I need when I set this up is DNS and DHCP. Wins. You know what? Let's do that later. Let's make this just a default install, and then I can set that up later. Because the reason why I want to set it up later is to just try to get into the OS as quickly as possible. So that's just your standard networking settings. That should work. So what I've done, I've set this VM as an internal network. So any other VMs that are linked into this network, it will be able to see. So those options I went to click, but unclick them, or you could set them up once you set up a domain. No, this computer is not on a network, always on a network without a domain. Okay, so because there's no domain here, I just set it up as a work group. I'll create the domain later. Okay. Complete the Windows 2000. If there's a CD in your drive, remove it. Okay. Let's remove the drive.